Hey everybody, Economic Ninja here. I hope you're doing great. Got some information about the BRICS nations. There is so much news right now, and to say that this news cycle is accelerating. And when I refer to the BRICS nations and how serious this is, I'm referring to the destruction of the US dollar and its dominance over the world as the world's reserve currency. People need to understand right now in America how this is going to affect your everyday lives going forward from here on out. You see, for the last 40 years, we have enjoyed, and I'm not joking, actually 50 years, been blessed by the fact that the deal was signed by Saudi Arabia where they would denominate dollar oil transactions in dollars, right? That's really what started the petrodollar standard. And it was honestly for 50 plus years, actually just 50 years, it was protected by the full confidence of the US military. Now, we have seen that change. In the last 2 years, we have seen our administration back down and not stand up to that agreement. Why do we know this? Well, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I showed you how Saudi Arabia completely abandoned the 50-year agreement, literally almost to the day when we signed an agreement with them denominating dollar in oil in dollars. Now they have since went on to sign agreements with multiple countries to provide oil to them, and some of those instances are outside of the dollar. One of which is China, where they made sure to alarm the world and tell them what is going on, that they are going to have an alliance or an allegiance with China when it comes to business. They've also done similar things, spoken about this with Russia. Now, we know that the BRICS nations were put together by India, Brazil, China, Russia, and some African nations. And it has been growing and growing and growing. I'm going to show you some articles that should be shocking to you, or maybe they're not, because you understand what's going on and you understand that the dollar is literally dying. And we are now in a world war economically, literally, between the East and the West. This is very serious. Not that it's going to affect you tomorrow, but in the future, it will affect you. Your dollars are going to have less purchasing power, and we are going to see hyperinflation in America. And the reason why is because all of the dollars that were ever created that are being held in central banks right now as reserves for purchases like oil that they no longer need to purchase oil with. They could use their own currency or another currency that's being developed right now between Russia and China. That means those dollars are going to come home to roost, which means we are going to have more currency sloshing around in the American economic system in America, which will create hyperinflation. All right, check this out. Now, it doesn't mean hyperinflation in everything. That's what I want people to understand. They seem to think that this is the time to go get into debt and it's going to be hyperinflated away. There is a time period between which the hyperinflation begins and when a government actually acts and does something, or when corporations have the money because the government has to step in or the central bank and produce the extra funds to be able to be paying extra. There is that pain in between, and I'm talking pain. This is when people lose their homes, lose their livelihoods, lose their jobs because they simply can't afford to go on work and then literally take that paycheck and buy goods or services to survive. Okay, there's a time period. Nobody talks about that because it's not in the history books, but there is definitely a time period, literally in between when the crisis starts and when the government steps in and does something. And that time in between is when you become insolvent. I don't care how wealthy you think you are. If you are not hedged the proper ways, you will fail. All right, here we go. Let's share the screen. I'm going to dive into these stories that we need to be sharing right now. So first off, let's just do a scan of the headlines. A new world order. BRICS nations offers alternative to the West. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the next one being ONeill urges BRICS bloc to expand, challenge dollar's dominance. All right. This is somebody from the Goldman Sachs group. Remember, we're going against global powers, global entities. Okay. It says right here, Russia proposes to create BRICS geological platform for data sharing. The world order for crude oil is disappearing. This is a break right now you are seeing since a seismic shift since Saudi Arabia walked away from the US and their agreement. Now they are doing multiple new agreements with other countries. This is very serious. Here we go. South Africa, Putin's ICC warrant and BRICS summit puts hosts in tailspin. So you're seeing all of these stories. Look at all these stories about the BRICS. The BRICS has overtaken the G7 in global GDP. This is 3 days ago. Guys, these are to say To say that the BRICS alliance is so important, such a big news story, but it is not being covered in Western media is a understatement. It is an outrage to me. And the more you learn about this, the more you're going to start learning. I need to protect myself. I need food on the side. I need water filtration. I need to start getting into God's money, gold and silver. There are people that are buying Bitcoin. I still think that there's exposure Bitcoin to the stock market. So I'm not buying any extra. I'm not selling my crypto, but I'm not buying any extra right now. Okay. But with gold and silver, I see in the future, I see much higher prices. That's not financial advice. That's just what I do and what I think, because I think it has been suppressed for so long. And as a matter of fact, if you start lining up all of these countries in these articles and then Google their central bank and gold purchases, I can guarantee you're going to find one thing. Every single one of these countries' central banks are buying gold right now. So what should you do? What your government tells you is okay. Hey, there's chemical spills and train derailments literally happening every day for the last like month. And every single one of them goes, it's okay. It's okay. Nothing wrong. Nothing to see here. Until, you're like in Flint, Michigan, you find out, oh, for the last, decade, you've been drinking toxic water and it's been poisoning you. Yeah, sorry. We just didn't know how to get this to you. Like this is happening monetarily right now. So let's dive into here. Two stories I want to go over with you right now. A new world order. BRICS nations offers alternative to the West. Predictions about BRICS countries as the fastest growing economies haven't quite panned out. Instead, the alliance is now offering a diplomatic forum and developing financing outside of Western mainstream. This is massive. One of the reasons why this is massive is because America has become a lending nation. It was a lending nation for so many decades. When countries were in need, they borrowed money from America, right? Well, then America used that. You could call it bribery, keep you on the hook, blackmail, whatever. They then had the authority to come in and say, hey, we want some of your natural resources. We want to set up our American companies here and all of that stuff, right? So now you are seeing the BRICS nations doing the same thing. We are setting up a financing arm. This is very, very, very important, because it is going to be easier for the BRICS to grow exponentially with all these smaller countries around the world. Think South America, right? Mexico has already signed on with the BRICS. Think all the really small countries in South America. Think about the African countries. We're talking rich countries in natural resources. They just don't have the way to go get it, right? Because they're poor nations. The BRICS alliance, which is becoming its own nation state of its own. Think of it this way, is literally going to make it so easy for countries to go, hey, are you sick and tired of America and how their policies have been destroying you for years? Come join us. We're the new alternative. Now, I mean, think about it. A couple of presidents ago, what was Obama's #1 campaign slogan? Change, change, change. That's what gets people going, because they want change. Think about how many decades America has been strong arming and destroying nations' economies. And now the BRICS alliance is going to be able to come in. China right now, just moving into Mexico. On our borders, we're literally losing that alliance with Mexico for trade. This is very, very serious. I want people to understand that. It says the acronym began as somewhat optimistic term to describe what were the world's fastest growing economies at the time. But now the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, are setting themselves up as an alternative to existing international financing and political forums. This is absolutely massive. Check this story out. Jim ONeill urges the BRICS bloc to expand, challenge dollar's dominance. This is literally, oh yeah. Strict admission criteria needed. Ex-Goldman chief economist. Group should focus on climate finance, boosting trade and health. Check this out. Jim ONeill, the former Goldman Sachs Group chief economist who coined the acronym BRIC, said the bloc of nations that later adopted the name should expand and work to counter the dollar's dominance. In a paper published in the Global Policy Journal on March 26, ONeill called on the group to apply strict criteria to ensure the addition of any new members to its ranks helps further its aims, urged it to focus on climate, finance, improving healthcare, and boosting trade. It says right here, this is a quote from him: the US dollar plays a far too dominant role in global finance, he wrote. Whenever the Federal Reserve Board has embarked on periods of monetary tightening, think about what's going on right now, or the opposite, loosening, the consequence of the value of the dollar and the knock-on effects have been dramatic. Let me stop right there and explain something very, very serious. When the Federal Reserve starts tightening or loosening, right? They screw up the economy in two different directions. Either they overexpand a bubble or they cause that overexpanded bubble to pop. All right. And each time, other countries know this, but American people do not know this. They buy up assets for pennies on the dollar. That's what happens during recession. All right. Strong banks take over weak banks. Strong companies take over weak companies. And the companies and the banks are weaker because of this sloshing of money going around through monetary policy. Very, very serious. I want people to understand how serious this is. But now, what's the opposite of that? How would you take away the authority of a central bank? Think about this. This is the most important part of this video. To be able to destroy purchasing power or create it through the sloshing of the system through monetary change or interest rate manipulation. You would tie your currency to an asset or an asset base, an asset class. This is going to be gold. The East has made it very clear: buy gold, buy gold, buy gold. We're China, we buy gold. We're Russia, we buy gold. Iraq, we buy gold. There's countries all over right now where central banks are buying gold. Why do you think that is? You think it's for their health? It is actually. That is true. It's for their monetary financial health. If they can show the rest of the world that they're not going to do what the Federal Reserve does to its currency, thus destroying the world currency, because we were on a dollar standard. We are no longer on a dollar standard. If they could show that they're not going to do that and that they're going to be behind the truth, well, what do you think about a great lie? Has enough truth in it to believe it, right? So what if the BRICS nations start coming out, and I believe that they're going to one day, they're going to end up buying up pretty much all the gold, and they're going to, because Western nations aren't buying gold. They're too prideful. And what happens? What comes right before a fall? Pride, right? And so they're going to buy up the gold, and they're going to go, we're going to peg it to this currency in some form or another. I don't know which amount they're going to do, what percentage. But point being is, then watch what happens to the price of gold, and you will be in the streets. Now it's just like Bitcoin. If you don't own Bitcoin, you don't care that it's 28 grand. To you, it's a con. It's a Ponzi scheme. I guarantee it, to anybody that paid anything under 28 grand, it's not a Ponzi scheme. But to you, it is. And so when gold goes up someday, which it will, because it's God's money, and it will return to its rightful place in time, its value, because it always does. It ebbs and flows just like other cycles. However, it's the big cycle. It's the big kahuna, the big mother of cycles. Why? Because it's the most important one. That's why it's in our Constitution, because our founding fathers also know how important it is. And so what I show you as I'm telling you this is how vitally important you need to be aware of this. It says right here, Brazil, Russia, India, and China established BRICS in 2009, and the bloc became BRICS a year later when South Africa was admitted. If it expands to include other emerging nations with president surpluses, a global fairer, multi-currency global system could emerge, ONeill says. And he already knows he's right, because it's already happening right now. With the agreements that are being signed right now, it is happening. Saudi Arabia applying, Mexico applying, all kinds of countries applying. So let me ask you this, to close this out. Who do you think is going to win? Canada, America, and Europe, or the rest of the world? Remember, the rest of the world's buying gold right now. The rest of the world is coming together and putting together a new reserve currency that will rival the dollar. But to be honest with you, after the inventions of SIPS, which is the counterparty to SWIFT, which is much faster, much cheaper, with the invention of certain cryptocurrency roadways like XRP, when the US is trying to destroy it, the SEC, other countries are saying, we want that. We want to use that to move our digital currency on top of. Think about what is happening right now. Start to prepare now. Do not wait until everybody's running down like to the bank to withdraw their money because there's a panic, or they're all trying to go and buy gold right now. It's crazy out in the gold market. My broker is completely slammed. I'll put a link down if you've never bought gold or silver to a company that I trust that delivers physical gold and silver. I'll put a link down to that. You can use it. The most important thing is you start to hedge. Start to hedge outside of what's going on in our system. Get out of debt. Break out of the system, the worldly system of debt. Look into God's money. Look into storing up food and water. This is very, very important. I could not emphasize this enough. Now, it's not financial advice, but I think in the next coming years, you're going to see and you're going to say, I saw the ninja say it. It's happening just like he said. And this is serious stuff. But when you get ready, You have nothing to fear. Guys, this is the greatest opportunity in your life to grow generational wealth. The only question is, are you willing to accept that challenge? All right, guys, that being said, the Economic Ninja is out.